Good afternoon, T-Wolves. Mr. Quentin here with what we did for today, Tuesday, November 10th, 2020. All right, so basically we have one assignment. This is a minor assignment, folks. It is for points, so please make sure you get that done tonight. We don't want it to be late and lose points when you have quality work coming through. So make sure you get all the points you possibly can. This is about sustaining institutions. As you know, we've been talking about basic institutions for the last couple of days, and we want to be sustaining those institutions. Hopefully, you remember that those institutions are government institutions, economic institutions, educational institutions, and religious institutions. So, obviously, these institutions do not want to go away. They might need to evolve, but they want to sustain themselves, to keep going, to keep themselves moving on. That is what sustain means. So the institutions have activities. They have things that they do to make sure that people continue to do them and thus sustain the institutions. And that's what we're going to be going on about today, folks. So we do have a digital notebook in here, again, that you are going to fill out. And so you'll just want to jump into the assignment and get moving on that. This is, of course, the actual slide deck. This is your digital notebook that you'll need to do. These are about the efforts and activities institutions use to sustain themselves over time, all right? To give us those traditions that we enjoy. This is started off by telling us about what a generation is. And a generation, simply defined as the average it takes for people to grow up and produce their own offspring. That's right. So you are your current generation. When you start having kids, you will be giving birth to the next generation, and your parents are the previous generation. Every society that has survived at least 3 or more generations has found a way to meet needs by sustaining their institutions. And so I have provided 3 examples. Again, folks, this needs to be your work, but you can definitely use this as a jumping off point. What would a group of people need to survive as a group for at least 100 years or at least 3 generations? Well, they would definitely need a way to maintain their food so that people will be willing to stay together and be able to stay together. If everybody has to run off in food all the time, then they're better off on their own, perhaps. They would need communal living so that people would be happy living together. And sometimes that means not being right on top of one another. Finally, I think that it's important that for people to want to stay together, they need to know why they're together in the first place. And so understanding that history and passing it along is also a reason that you would need for people to survive and carry on. And that leads to the questions of what efforts and activities institutions use to sustain themselves over time. And there are a few. They use education, formal education and informal education, right? And we've got the definition of formal and definition of informal education here. And you can use an example of something that you've learned from informal education. From my family, I found out that I'm related to indigenous tribes of the Cherokee. Also, my dad and my granddaddy, they taught me how to hunt when I was young. I didn't go to an actual school for that. These are things I found out through conversation and through being with my family. That's informal. Access to technology, how society provides access to or restricts information. So here in the United States, we have a pretty open access to technology, but there are countries like China that does restrict access to technology, and that is used to both sustain institutions, and sometimes that sustenance, the way it gets sustained is by not allowing it to change. And so it's asking you, in your opinion, how would restricting technology enable a society to maintain its institutions? Folks, you can certainly see here, just by pausing the video, what I have written. I'm not expecting this level of writing, just complete and complex sentences when you do answer. That's all I'm looking for, folks. We have oral traditions, stories passed down by word of mouth. You can take a look at the picture here and see what inferences you can make. You can watch this 2-minute video to see also about oral tradition, and also read this article, very brief article that talks about other cultures, several other cultures, and how they pass down their stories, how they use oral traditions. And then you should use your own opinion to answer this question about how oral traditions help sustain institutions over time. Again, complete and complex sentences are all I'm looking for, folks. I do not expect collegiate level writing. Finally, we have cultural traditions. These are the practices and traditions that are maintained year after year, like for us, Halloween, Easter, Christmas, 4th of July, Ramadan, or perhaps Passover, all of those kinds of things. And so you can read these 3 examples that talk about that, and then you get to describe 2 of your own cultural traditions that you practice. I talk about my family reunion, and I talk about Thanksgiving. Maybe you'll talk about Thanksgiving too and talk about what your family does. Or perhaps maybe you have a special vacation that your family takes every year. All of these kinds of things are cultural traditions that you practice and that you get to share. Again, we're just using complete and complex sentences. Finally, you are going to have several slides. Slides 10 through 13 each have a prompt. Let me show them to you really quickly. Prompt 1 is to write a letter from yourself in 60 years from now. Prompt 2 is to answer the question, has social media made our world better or worse? Prompt 3, your generation. What are common ways people misunderstand your generation? Why don't you clarify those? Include where they might be coming from, the misunderstandings might be coming from, and how you could solve it. The last prompt is to invent a holiday. Why does it exist? What's the story? What are the games? What are the rituals? What's the food? All the details that you can think of for your holiday. And you're going to write about it here. You need to address how it impacts sustaining institutions. When you're writing about this, what is it that you're writing about? How is it going to help us understand what it means for institutions to do things that sustain themselves, right? Through cultural traditions or oral traditions or access to technology. You're using those responses to help you here. I want 7 to 10 complete and complex sentences. Your document will have 3 sentence stems that you can use to assist you, but you'll have to add to them to be successful. You'll need to fill in those blanks. Don't just use one word. If you are a pre-AP or GT extension, you must also use prompt 3 or 4 in your response. So that means if you choose prompt 1, you need to incorporate prompt 3 or prompt 4. If you are doing prompt 3, you would also need to include prompt 4. If you chose prompt 4, you would also need to include prompt 3. That is what I mean by that. You can see here that I chose prompt 2. I do have, it's either 11 or 12 complete and complex sentences here. But again, ladies and gentlemen, I do not expect collegiate level writing. I want you to do your best to give me 7 to 10 complete and complex sentences. You can certainly pause this and read it if you like, again, to give you an idea of what this should look like. I don't expect you to copy and paste it, and I don't want you to copy and paste. Come up with your own response. I chose prompt 2, so make sure you tell us what prompt you're choosing. And again, that prompt is, has social media made our world better or worse? But you can choose the other prompts if you want. Remember, pre-AP/GT only, you must also include prompt 3 or 4 in your response. So that's it, folks. You take care of all that. Get that submitted. Remember, it's due by 11:59 tonight. It is a minor grade. It is for points. And I do hope you have an absolutely amazing day. Think again, also, we do have a quiz coming up on Friday. So I want you to be thinking about that and getting prepared. If you have any questions, make sure you send me a note in Schoology or send me that email. And I hope you have have an amazing day. Mr. Quinton, out.